Conflict between the world's two largest economies is ramping up, and Canada now appears to be caught in the crossfire after Canadian authorities arrested Huawei's CFO on a request from U.S. authorities. She now faces extradition to the U.S. China is demanding Canada release MENG Wanzhou and insists she didn't do anything wrong. Huawei is one of the world's largest communication companies. Last year, it posted sales of $87 billion. And the CFO who's been arrested, well, she's the daughter of the company's founder. So what could the fallout be here for Canada's relations with China, and how much is at stake? Guy Saint-Jacques served as Canada's ambassador to China from 2012 to 2016. He's now senior fellow at the University of Alberta's China Institute. Mr. Saint-Jacques joins me now from Montreal. Hi there, nice to see you again. Thanks for making time.
Good evening, Vashi.
How significant is this move, is this arrest, and how much will it impact, do you think, the relationship between Canada and China?
Well, it's certainly something that we could have hoped to avoid, but in fact we are stuck now because of the extradition treaty, which is very clear. We have to go through the legal process that is outlined in the treaty. Of course, the U.S., once they knew that Mrs. MENG would be coming through Vancouver, they asked for her to be extradited. I suppose that this was sent through a diplomatic note, and the next step will be for the judge to decide whether the proof that has been, the evidence that has been put together, assumed by the FBI, is strong enough and justify her extradition to China. But of course, this happens at a time where our relationship is not going the way that maybe China would have liked it to go. You will remember that there were expectations when Prime Minister Trudeau visited China last year that we would launch free trade negotiations. Of course, now with clause 3210 in the new agreement, Canada, U.S. and Mexico, this, for all practical purposes, is gone. We won't be able to launch anytime soon any free trade negotiations with China. Minister Morneau and Minister Carr were in Beijing on November 12 for the annual dialogue on economic and financial strategic issues. I know that they put to the Chinese side a number of proposals about where to move forward with the economic relationship, looking at some sectors, but as we cannot have any reduction of tariffs under sectoral agreements, it means that we don't have, we cannot expect much progress. So that means that this arrest, the arrest of Mrs. MENG, is adding further complication. China is known for retribution. In this case, we'll have to see what kind of pressure they will put on us to try to get her back to China.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the possibility of retribution. How likely do you think it is, and what are some of the possible forms it might take from your perspective?
Well, the Chinese, despite the fact that they claim that they are a country governed by the rule of law, there are many instances where they bypass their legal system and the leadership take decision, and I think they would expect the Canadian government to do the same thing in this case, which is impossible. I think that Mrs. MENG will have a good legal representation, and it will probably take 6 to 12 months before she is extradited to the U.S., which means that it will give more time for China to put pressure on Canada. So what form could that take place? Well, they could decide to postpone some of the remaining dialogues that have not taken place yet. They may decide to cancel visits. They may decide also, and we'll have to watch this, to cancel maybe some or delay some commercial projects. And so in all of this, it's an issue. We have to remember that it's an issue that has received a lot of attention in Beijing. We just have to imagine what would have been the U.S. reaction if the daughter of Steve Jobs, when he was CEO of Apple, was arrested in China or in other country, and that China had requested her extradition. This would have created much of an uproar. Mr. MENG, the founder of Huawei, is very well connected in Beijing, and that's why this is receiving a lot of attention at the highest level in Beijing.
I just have a minute left, Mr. Saint-Jacques, but you spoke about Minister Morneau, Minister Carr, this drive from the Canadian government, though, if not a formal free trade agreement, but still to increase trade. Do you think that that is still possible?
Well, I think that already this year we saw our exports to China increase in as much as there was displacement from U.S. exports. Once the tariffs were put in place by China on soybeans and lobster, we saw an immediate increase of our own exports. And I think so far things have been looking good for Canada, but now this might be in jeopardy because clearly the Chinese are upset by all this. I think also we have to see this in the larger geostrategic relationship between the U.S. and China, in as much as it's not limited only to trade, but it's part of what I would call the confinement strategy that is pursued by the U.S. With regard to China. And China, I know that people in China are getting quite concerned by this, and they will want to try to put as much pressure on us as possible.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, Mr. Saint-Jacques. Really appreciate your insight.
Thank you.